In Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country, the Enterprise is framed for an attack against the Klingon Chancellor's personal flagship, the Kronos One. For a few seconds it seemed that this Klingon cruiser was coiling up to retaliate with an enraged can of whoop-ass. But in a valiant effort to keep the peace, Captain Kirk signals their surrender right before the attack. But what if Kirk had not surrendered? What if General Chang, played by the great Christopher Plummer, went on with the righteous retaliation anyway? Let's do a CG battle breakdown about what could have happened here. I will outline just my own scenario and how it could have turned out, but you may have your own ideas, so watch the video to the end and share in the comments how you think it would have gone down. Let's dive right into the technical details about each ship first and compare the two. At 300 meters long, the USS Enterprise 1701-A under Captain Kirk in this time period is a refit Constitution-class heavy cruiser, which for many decades was the pride and joy of the Federation fleet. But by this time, larger and more capable ships are in use, such as the USS Excelsior, then under the command of Captain Sulu. Still, the Enterprise at this time is one of the fastest ships in Starfleet with both deep space exploration abilities and fighting ability. She has decent shields, a decent forward-firing photon torpedo capacity, and pulse phaser bubble turrets placed in key positions throughout the hull. Her main defense is in the shields, not so much hull or armor. I say this mainly because on screen, anytime she is forced into battle with the shields down, terrible things tend to happen to her. The Kronos One is a modified Katinga-class battlecruiser, about 280 meters long. The standard Katinga in this era is a common Klingon cruiser built for war, and is an upgraded version of the older D7 cruisers that the Enterprise encountered many times throughout the original series. In those encounters, the D7s were shown to be well armed with disruptor weapons, but at the time the Enterprise, when at its best, could routinely defeat a D7. However, the Klingons continuously upgrade their ships, and the Katinga is a different animal. Since that epic opening in Star Trek The Motion Picture, we know the Katinga can fire at least 3 photon torpedoes in rapid succession from their forward launcher, and we know they have an aft torpedo launcher, which is in fact something the refit Enterprise does not have. It is unclear just how powerful the Katinga disruptors are, but let's keep in mind that the Katinga was already a well-established ship when the Enterprise refit was launched, and it's likely that the refit Enterprise is a newer and more advanced ship. Now, since there is no hard canon that can compare these two ships' capabilities, if you like, you can go by various game stats, whether they come from the old FASA tabletop simulator or any number of computer games that have been released over the years. In almost every situation, the refit Constitution is tactically superior, if not on par with the Klingon Katinga class, and often those cases where the Katinga is a match is because of its cloaking device. So it is likely in combat the Enterprise would prevail against any average Katinga. But Kronos One is no average Katinga. Kronos One, being the personal transport of the Chancellor, is allegorical to Air Force One, the jet that transports the President of the United States. Kronos One is different in appearance to most Katingas, with various areas of gold lattice work and plating, red, gold, and gray hull plates, and a different bridge and command section. I have to admit, if you look at the studio model of the Kronos One, it is probably the most complex Star Trek physical model ever built for a ship. My own CG model isn't quite as detailed. If I were to try to duplicate it in exact detail, it would take months. But hopefully I've created a version of the Kronos One that gets the spirit of the ship across. So if we go off of Air Force One as the template, here are a number of upgrades I believe Kronos One has. Enhanced shielding, enhanced armor, hardened sensors and electronics, an advanced communication center and fleet combat information center, upgraded warp drive, communications jamming equipment, secondary main energizers and power systems, and last but not least, the best cloaking device available. Okay, so let's break down what we know happened first in the movie. After the prototype bird of prey attacks the Kronos One while cloaked, which has the effect of framing the Enterprise for the attack, and after Klingon Chancellor Gorkon is assassinated, Kronos One recovers, arms torpedoes, and Chang seems very confident that he will blow Kirk out of the stars. In this crucial moment, rather than keeping the shields down and surrendering, let's say that Kirk decides he's not ready to risk the safety of his ship and crew, and Enterprise raises shields. In spite of their pleas not to fight but to sort it all out, this is just enough provocation for Chang to attack.
Tickle us, do we not laugh? Prick us, do we not bleed? Wrong us, shall we not revenge?
Rather than retaliate, Kirk wants to avoid a fight. The Enterprise is able to avoid most of the torpedoes and tank one torpedo hit on the shields with minor bleed-through damage. Chang throws caution to the wind and goes close quarters.
Cry havoc! And let's slip the dogs of war!
The disruptor strike severely damages Enterprise's shields, with the aft hit by the heavy disruptor cannons causing minor damage to the deuterium tanks, an essential fuel for the antimatter reactor to function at full capacity.
Our revels now are ended, Kirk.
Scotty warns that another hit from a photon torpedo could collapse the shields. This is when Kirk decides to run. The Enterprise is at warp with the Kronos One in pursuit. Under normal circumstances, the Enterprise could outrun a Katinga-class cruiser, but there are two problems. One, the Kronos One is not a normal Katinga, and would match the Enterprise's warp speed for a while, and two, Enterprise is operating on less deuterium flow than normal. Without repairs, she will not be able to maintain maximum warp. The other problem is tactics. The Klingon ship has a lot more weapons on the front, and while in pursuit is in a far better position, especially with those forward-firing torpedoes, and Enterprise has no aft torpedo launchers to counter. Kirk needs to increase his options, even the option for a good fight, and he is aware that simply running looks kinda cowardly to the Klingons, and losing their respect may just as easily start a war as anything. Kirk selects a battleground, a nearby system with a neutron star and a few planetoids with asteroid fields. All the radiation should nullify any cloaking device, while simultaneously disrupting sensors and long-range communications. When they enter the system, Spock notes that ore content of the asteroids should deflect most active sensor scans, and with a careful survey, they are able to find an asteroid with a kind of cave for them to hide in. Kirk does the Kirk-like thing and sets up a trap. He tells Spock to go to active sensors and bounce them off a nearby asteroid. This will make it seem like the sensor beams of a Federation starship are coming from the asteroid. Soon Kronos One arrives, and in their search they notice the sensor pings, so they approach to investigate. The trap works. The photon torpedoes eliminate the ventral and aft shields of the Kronos One, and the phasers surgically disable the cruiser's remaining power systems without destroying the ship. At this point, Kirk has the cards, but instead of dishonoring the Klingons by demanding their surrender, he requests a face-to-face with Gorkon's daughter, Azat Bur, in the hopes that they can investigate the assassination together. He tells her that she has no reason to trust him, but if he were going to kill them, he already would have, and that to honor her father, to give peace a chance, even if it might be her last day. Of course, Chang and his co-conspirators may try to pull off any number of shenanigans to prevent this. And what of the prototype bird of prey that can fire while cloaked? Chang would not have revealed it too early unless he had to, since many high-ranking Klingons aboard the Kronos One, including Azet Burr, would have challenged him for his subterfuge. Also, the Enterprise retreats before Chang feels the need to call it for assistance. Chang more than likely would have held it back as a trump card in the same way that he did in the movie to eliminate the Enterprise when it shows up at the Khitomer Peace Conference. Would a war with the Klingons have occurred had this alternate scenario taken place? Well, I'm not sure. I would give it a 45% chance. The Klingons are not ready to face the Federation, all her allies, and then possibly the Romulans as well. The Klingons are warlike, but they do not wish to see the end of their empire. Chang has his own special war plan and delusions about he can defeat the Federation with his genius, but perhaps that's a topic for another day. Evasive action. Do 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 do. Oh, do 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 do. Do